Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I've got some subscriber encounters to share with you. Also, for the last couple of days since William and myself did the Q&A, I kind of dropped out of sight for a little bit. I had some health issues come up that I needed to get taken care of. Bill and myself are working together to get some Q&As out to you guys, to get those questions answered and some more answers questioned. But before we get into today's upload, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Now, I've definitely taken enough of your time, guys, and you've waited a couple of days. Let's get on with today's subscriber encounters. Shall we? Today's first subscriber submission. Hello, Jeff. I hope you get this. I've never told anyone about this except for my wife. And that was about a year ago. When I was 16, my car broke down, so I had to ride with my friend Rich when they picked me up. Rich and our friend, Big Mike, when they got there, they had an older guy that none of us knew. His name was Hall. What's strange is he was in his 40s. I asked my friend, why is he here? He was walking, so we gave him a ride. He's a nice guy, so I didn't think much of it. But why ride with young guys? Everything was fine. It was getting late, maybe midnight. Rich had to get something at the gas station, so I stayed in the car. Mike went with him, so it was just me with this guy Hall. Sitting in the back seat, when he turns to me and says, "You want to see something?" And I said, "What's that?" Jeff, he changed his face and looked like a wolf. Long nose, black around him with what looked like a mane. I'd never been so scared. I took off out of the car. Believe me, I was the fastest kid in school. 100 yards in 12 seconds, kid you not. Then my friends came to the other side. Said, "What's your problem? Get in." I never said anything to no one until that day, my wife. I made Mike get back in and never said a thing, and I got dropped off. Can you please ask William what this thing was? Jeff, I don't lie and never have. I'm 59 years old. Jeff, I can still see what he looks like. Back then, I was a strong kid. I grew up on a farm in Oneonta, New York, working a 200-head milking farm, sent there by my parents every summer. I also have another strange thing when I lived in Texas. Please ask Bill what this person was. Thank you. Well, I'm gonna give my little view of the situation. New York State, as all states, are rich with Native American lore and history. And as we are learning daily, the more the Native people choose to share. A long time ago, we only thought that the Skinwalker was Navajo, and now we are learning that most tribes had some sort of variant of the Skinwalker. It wasn't called the Skinwalker, but there were different people who changed form. I don't know why this person would do this in a vehicle to a 16-year-old kid. Maybe he had some serious mental issues. But yeah, I really think that what you encountered was a shapeshifter. As we've been learning through William sharing with us, Dogman and Werewolf Don't Change. So yeah, I really am thinking that. Oneonta has a lot of Native American history. It has a lot of Amish history, if I'm not mistaken. So it's steeped in history, lore, and magic. Black magic, white magic. I don't know, but I'm really thinking that you saw a shapeshifter, and it baffles me why he would want to just scare a 16-year-old kid. He could have, maybe he was intoxicated, or like I stated, he had some mental issues. But that is my view on that, and I'm sure William will give us his input on it as well. Thank you for sharing that with us. Today's second subscriber submission. We lived in Marshall County, a very small town. We didn't live close to this town, but we were still considered a part of it. So that you can get a picture of what it was like, we lived on a long dirt road with only 5 houses spread out over the area. All of the homes were built on the same side of the road. Across the street and behind us were woods. Also, there was a huge pasture beside a wooded area across and down from our home. We had a 2-story house on the road. Why this detail is relevant will make more sense about my encounter. The land was 2-tier, big backyard and sizable front yard. There was a rock wall with flower beds and steps to the upper tier of the yard. Fast forward 2 or 3 months later, my dad had gotten some chickens, and in the mornings when they would go out to feed them and water them, the chickens would be dead. They were inside the chicken coop with the latch on it to keep the other wildlife away from them. There had been something like 100 plus chickens, and they were being taken. Sometimes, as I said, dead. I remember one morning going out with our housekeeper. There were chickens with their guts pulled out inside of the coop while others were missing and gone. It was then decided it was a neighbor's tomcat who was doing this, so the neighbor and my brother decided to hunt down this cat and shoot it. During this, I was sent inside because, of course, I was crying and telling my dad not to let them do this. I'd always loved animals, and I believed what they were doing was wrong. Then a week goes by and more chickens are being killed and disappearing. Then it was decided during the second week to go ahead and kill the rest of the chickens before there were not any more of them left. Some weren't even fully grown yet, and were only half the size of the older ones. Yet the decision was made. There was a predator out there that was able to get them, and no one could figure out what it was. So it was best to harvest them before none of them were left. A week or 2 later, and I started to hear what I thought were dogs howling outside, near or in our front yard. I was awakened almost every night. It wasn't just one howl, but many, like a pack of dogs. I also knew nobody had a dog anywhere on our street. Dogs were a luxury back in '66. It was nothing like today, where a lot of people have a dog or dogs. This is where my encounter differs. I woke up to the howling outside again, but this time was different from the other nights. There was a wall heater in my room. The red coils in the heater were bright red, and the whole room glowed. The room was so hot. I got up to turn it down. The closer I got to move toward it, the hotter it seemed to become. The heat was so intense that I couldn't get near it. It looked like the whole wall was on fire. The red light was not natural at all. I moved to my side of the room, away from the heat. I just stood there for a while. I was scared and didn't know what I was supposed to do. I jumped into bed beside my sister and threw the sheet over my head. Now it wasn't just the howling, but my room was unbearably hot and glowing red. This continued for a few more nights, the howling outside and the wall glowing red. The heat makes it so hot, and never being able to get close enough to turn it down. After the 3rd night of the hot glowing red wall, I asked my dad if he was coming into our room and turning the heat up while we were asleep. He said no. I then asked Miss Katie if she had been in our room at night as well. She also said no. I told them it was coming on at night and making our room really hot. My dad said, "You know it will come on by itself if it gets too cold in your room." So the 6-year-old genius that I was decided to turn the heater off, and so I did. That night, no red glow or horrible heat woke me up, or the next night. I was diligent in making sure that heater was off every night. I made sure the dial was turned all the way to the left. Third night, double-checked the dial. Yup, it was in the off position, and I lied down to fall asleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, I was hearing the howling again. The wall was glowing red, and it felt hotter than any other time. I knew I had turned the heater off, so I got up to see if it had been turned on somehow. As I moved toward the wall, I couldn't get near it. Again, it was so hot, it was burning my face, my arms and hands where I had tried to block my face from the heat. I bent down to see if I could at least see the dial, and there was no checking it. It was just too hot. The howling seemed to grow louder. It sounded like it was right outside of my window. I saw movement in the window. I started to straighten back up. The curtains were only partially open, and I couldn't move. I was so scared. I tilted my head just a little to the side so I could see if something was really by our window. As I leaned closer, I thought it was probably just my reflection. Then the yellow eyes were visible in the teeth, and the teeth were huge. I could see its claws resting on the outside of the windowsill. Its ears were like those of a shepherd's dog, but more pointier. It seemed like we looked at each other for a very long time. What caused me to run was it seemed to smile at me. And it wasn't like a smile like, "Hey, nice to meet you." It was as if it was letting me know that it had seen me, and it knew that I saw it. I then ran to my side of the bed and covered myself completely. I peeked out, and it was still standing there in the window. Its head seemed to turn slightly, as if it was trying to peek over at me. As I looked at it, I started looking around my room. There was now a red grid. It was completely surrounding all 4 walls of my room. At that time, I thought it was a red fence. It also overlaid the glowing red wall. At first, I thought it was part of the red glow, that I was going to be cooked. As I got older, I figured out it was a grid of some type. Also, to my shame, my babysitter was sleeping by that window. I didn't pull her away from the window. I just hid under my covers, looking out once in a while, hoping this complete nightmare would just go away. I did fear it was going to come through that window. I don't know where it went, and I do know the window was on the 2nd level. It vanished. It was gone, just as quiet as when it had happened. The red grid came back for a few nights. The howling became distant, and then completely stopped. I started to have night terrors after that, and to this day my kids know if they wake me up to stand at a distance. They have received a phone, remote control, and other items being launched at them. Nightmares of this thing standing over me and physically holding my wrist are common. I get to see it very clearly. What makes them so bad is coming out of a sleep, I open my eyes, and there is a moment where it is there. I punch at it to keep it away from me, and then it's gone. My dad remarried. She was a beautiful woman. She hated where we lived and moved us all back to Huntsville, where I never heard or saw anything. When I was 12, we moved to Washington State. Before anyone asks, nope, never seen, smelled, or heard a Bigfoot. In fact, up here, have not run into what they refer to as the Big Three, though I have seen other weird things. Thanks for listening, Jeffrey and William. Bill, if you're listening, remind me tomorrow when we talk on the phone to bring up a couple of things concerning this that the subscriber had written to keep out of the story. Maybe this can shed some light on the subscriber forum. Today's third subscriber encounter. Jeff, I hope your recovery is going well, and I want to thank you for your great channel and uploads. In Fruitdale, Alabama, my dad will lease hunting property for the season, and this hunting season I decided to go in on the property with him and help it get ready for deer season. As a kid, before my childhood encounter that I shared with you just a short while back, I would go with him every season and help with the tractor and help chop limbs down and put out the corn, something my dad and I would use as a getaway time to enjoy the wildlife that so many of us don't take time to enjoy and truly realize how beautiful life really is. But just the other day, I went alone and wanted to check out the property since it's almost time to be getting it prepped. I hop out of my truck and walk probably a half mile onto the property, and at this point I'm kind of in deep woods. The open area we used for hunting was probably 500 yards back or so, but like I have always done, I like to walk further and just see how it's around where I hunt. Plus, the walks help me with my anxiety. I was coming up on a hill that was in the open and was made of red dirt. I ran up the hill and sat down on the red dirt hill and began to just enjoy the fresh air and the sound of the birds. The whole walk, it was active, and I never had any weird feelings or smells anything. I've paid very close attention to all your uploads with William, and have taken his answers and helpful advice to heart, along with my hunting experience I have. Only thing I noticed were claw marks on some of the trees. They were fairly wide and could see four-finger-like downward strokes, and slight fifth, where I would guess the thumb would be. And other trees, it seemed more slanted and not straight. Down, so like I was saying, my trip into the woods was smooth sailing. Just a couple of trees with those claw marks, and also, let me say this, I did have my .416 Ruger Hawkeye African rifle. I just bought it, and planned on trying to break it in. After my childhood encounter, it made me want to be always prepared, but never go hunting for one. So I just wanted to clear the air. I was not out trying to hunt one of these, but I do keep a big game rifle with me just to be safe. Rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. So I'm sitting on the hill with my rifle, and as I'm sitting, about 20 minutes of relaxing, it goes dead quiet. I notice this, but don't freak out. I begin just to slowly look around, and behind me, my rifle is loaded with the safety on. I don't lift the rifle, I keep it by my side, as I'm not trying to send the wrong message if this happens to be a dogman or werewolf. So I stand up and have my rifle by my side. I look to my left, and off about 50 yards, I see a black figure crouched down beside a tree. And how I could tell is that the area was open and had a little bit of trees and brush around, so that black spot was totally out of place. And as I look at this thing, it lets out a deep, deep gurgle-like sound. And this is when the story turns into something I know nobody is going to believe, but I swear on my soul. And William, if you hear this, maybe you can help explain some of this. Like I'm saying, as I'm looking at it, it made that sound. It began to slowly walk on all fours my way. And I remained still because I don't want to send the wrong message. So as it makes its way, I say out loud, "If you think I'm here to harm you, I'm not. I'm just here checking out my hunting property." That's when it stops and crouches back down on its back legs. And when I say legs, these were no dog legs. They looked more like a human-like, and I began to notice yellow-like eyes. And first thing I think is werewolf, basing it off William has spoken about. I saw no tail, but as this thing stops and crouches down, it tilts its head, and with a deep, deep voice and serious look in its eyes, it asked me, "Why aren't you running?" Jeff, when I say my whole body went limp and felt like even my soul left my body, that's how I felt. And with a stutter, I replied, "Because I know about you and your kind, and I'm not here to harm you. I believe we can be at peace." It just looks at me and begins sniffing the air and tilts its head, and then straightens back and says to me, "You have no fear of me?" I think to myself and realize it can sense my emotions. I tell him if you wanted me dead, you would have killed me, and like I said before, if you don't try to harm me, I won't attempt you harm, because I believe you want what we want, and that is to live and live without doing harm. I seen one of your kind as a child, and for years I felt like it wanted to lure me with showing friendly intentions. But the older I got, I began to realize it could have killed me just like you can right now, but you haven't. Now, Jeff, I know this is a lot to hear and probably find truth, but I'm dead serious. All this happened. I don't troll, and I don't take this stuff as a joke, but after I said all that, it stands up, and this thing's easily 7 to 8 feet tall. He stands and he says to me, "Protect us," and then trotted back into the woods. Jeff, if you can ask William what it meant by that, it would help, because I've lost sleep over this, and I don't understand, because this all something I've only seen in movies or heard from others like William about them speaking. This, all to me, still feels like a dream or a movie. This is my second encounter in 20 years, and each one has been harmless. I don't know if it's certain people or what, but I still can't wrap my head around this last encounter. So please, if you or William can help answer this would be great. Wow. There's a reason why I did all these three together. Because they had a question for Bill. After the Q&A that William and myself did together, I didn't really feel great, and I had some sort of, I don't even know what it was. I literally felt like I was dying and had to go to the hospital last night. I still don't feel real great, but I feel a lot better than last night. I was supposed to do a second part of the Q&A with Bill. Now, I wanted to get these out so Bill could hear them and possibly shine some light on these. Now, tomorrow, when him and I talk on the phone before doing whatever, I'm going to try to get some answers for the three. The second one, I want everyone to just kind of remember what was said, because there's a lot to that one, and I'm definitely going to ask Bill. Plus, like I said, there was information shared that I can't share openly right now. The subscriber asked me not to. But I think there's a lot going on there, and I think Bill will be kind of excited. And it's kind of weird if you can excite a person that hunts monsters for a living, so hopefully he will be, and then I can smile. I hope you guys enjoyed today's upload. I know it's shorter than most, and I know it's, no Q&A, but I kind of wanted to get back to basics quickly and just get these out for Bill to hear and you guys to hear. And so the three who wrote these in to me knew that I was checking my email. Anyway, I want to let everybody know that I appreciate all of your support, and may the Great Spirit watch over all of you and guide you through your future.